As Americans prepare to observe Memorial Day, what does this weekend personally mean to you, to the men and the women of the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Well, it's good to be with you. And I think what it really means is a moment of reflection for sacrifice. Again, I think the one thing that I want to emphasize to all Americans, Memorial Day is not Veterans Day. Veterans Day is when we honor all who served.
Right.
Memorial Day is a very specific time in which we honor those who gave all, who did not come home. And I think that is something that as you go out, as you celebrate, as you make the travel plans that I just saw y'all talking about, is just remember the real reasons and the abilities for you to do that is over the 250 years of our great country is because that we have had those who were willing to raise their right hand and go, and some who did not come home. And I think Memorial Day just symbolizes the freedom is very high price, and it's paid for by the patriots and those who actually have went forward and served our country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to your exact point, Mr. Secretary, it always bothers me when I look on social media and I see people saying Happy Memorial Day. This is not a happy holiday, and I know many of us confuse it with the beginning of summer or the end of the school year, but this is about families or the people who have served and lost their lives in uniform in service to us.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and it's very, applicable here at the VA. Of course, we help veterans of all kinds every day in a different way with health care and benefits. But also we have the National Cemetery Administration, which has over 130 cemeteries, which all, by the way, if you want to go somewhere on Memorial Day, just look around to our national cemeteries. There'll be events in most all of those as you go along. That'd be a great time to go. And especially if you have young children, teach them the value of freedom, teach them the value of what our country means. Going forward, Sam Brown, our undersecretary, has done a great job in making sure we do proper remembrances of those that have fought and died and also lived for our country. So I think these are the kind of things that matter when you start talking about sacrifice. You talk about, I hear all the time people talking about their rights, their rights, their rights. Well, somebody paid for those rights. Memorial Day is the day we honor those.
You know, I'm so glad you brought up the cemeteries because we're seeing so many incredibly moving images out of Arlington National Cemetery too. Nearly 1,500 soldiers are placing flags on every single grave this week there. Can you tell us a little bit more about this initiative and why it is so important to, as you said, take your family, take your kids out there?
Yeah, I think it's a remembrance, and it says we will never forget. We leave no one behind, and we never forget. And we do still have our POWMIs that are missing, but we never forget. We want to continue that tradition. I think this week, especially on Monday, when the administration we come together at Arlington to remember those who have passed on at that wonderful facility. Also that evening, as we remember 250 years, Freedom 250, we're having another candlelight visual there that evening, remembering the stories of those people. So if you're in the DC area, we'd love for you to come out and be a part of that as we go forward. Because we're actually, again, I say this all the time. Y'all know my background as a chaplain, as a pastor. When I've done funerals before, I always tell them a statement. I said, "You're here not because somebody died." And they sort of look at me funny because they're in a funeral home or their side. I said, "No, you're not here because they died. You're here because they lived. You're here because they actually lived and they meant something to you." And Memorial Day ought to be about the stories of those who lived, yet we lost.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and before we go, Mr. Secretary, I do want to ask you real quickly about making sure our veterans that are still with us and their families are properly supported. I know the White House proposing a $144 billion in funding for your department in the president's next budget request. You recently testified before the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee and really got into a heated exchange with Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Take a look at this.
You need to increase the number of direct care, not cut funding for direct care.
Well, what about the veterans who are following the Mission Act who actually want to have a community care doctor?
Then they go first to direct care and then they go into private care. That's my point. My point is that you're getting to a point that they don't even have the option to go to direct care first.
That's not true.
The VA needs to be a medical center home.
That is not true. That is not true. You worked at the VA, you know better.
Yes, I did work for the VA, and I do know better, and I know what you're doing.
Why did you say it?
I mean, at the end of the day, the price of honor, the sacrifices of our fallen heroes and the care of veterans is truly priceless, and we shouldn't be getting into misinformation about it.
No, I'm not going to be lectured by somebody who wants to make a political speech, and especially one who knows better, who actually worked as a spokesman in this department, if you can believe that. This is what, again, no veteran can walk off the street and go to a doctor and have VA pay for their medical bill. That's just not true. They've got to go through our system. And again, you can have all the talking points you want, but in a weekend like this, privatization is not happening at the VA. We're following the law. We're having more people in our country, over 140,000 new veterans have signed up just since January alone. I mean, we're seeing wait times go down. We're seeing the things done right. I'm just not going to have a politicization of this. You can say all the political talking points you want, but at the end of the day, it's about a veteran at the VA.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.